I grew up on a farm in Iowa, and after I graduated from high school, I set 2 goals for my life: to make a lot of money and have a lot of fun. So I went to tech school, got a tech degree in ag mechanics, and in that nice spiritual environment of the factory, a couple of the guys shared with me how I could know Jesus personally. And of course, the factory wasn't a spiritual environment, but as they began to share with me that I could know Jesus personally, I then said, wow, nobody ever told me that before. And I remember they had taken me to lunch, 2 of the guys I worked with, and after the meal, and between the meal and dessert, I invited Jesus to come into my life. And I remember walking out of that restaurant thinking, being a little bit upset. Why hadn't someone told me? I went to church all my life, every Sunday for 18 years, and sometimes kicking and screaming, and no one had told me that I needed to invite Christ to come into my life. And he began to change my life in a big way. I met a guy working with a mission organization, Campus Crusade for Christ, and I remember going to the dormitories, learning how to share my faith. And the staff guy knocked on the door, walked in, sat down, shared with the student, just like I had been shared with, how he could know Jesus personally. He prayed and invited Christ into his life. We went to the next room, knocked on the door, same thing happened. Went to a third door, knocked on the door, and that guy asked Jesus into his life as well. Then we came out of the room and he said to me, oh, Mike, what do you think about this? Man, this is cool. This is really neat to see how these people can know what I know and invite Christ into his life. And I remember he said to me, well, would you like to try? And I said, well, sure. But in my heart, I said, well, no, I was scared. And so we walked to the next door, and I remember knocking on the door. Lord Jesus, don't let somebody be home. And yet someone was there. And we walked in, and I shared with that student how he could know Jesus personally, and he invited Christ into his life. I was still working at the factory, and I began to think, Lord, the factory's kind of holding me back from what I really want to do with my life. And I think there came a point in my life that I decided that really my 2 goals, make a lot of money and have a lot of fun, was really pretty selfish. Because I thought, hey, making a lot of money, that I'm gonna be well fed and I'm gonna be happy. But I realized that when I invited Jesus into my life, that was real happiness. I have a joy, and I found something that's of great value, much more than any money or what I could perceive as happiness in this world would be. I have Jesus. And to be able to tell another person, I've seen that joy in other people's lives, and that I could then be able to farm for Jesus in a sense. It sounds kind of corny a little bit, but we saw, I could raise corn and I could raise soybeans, but to tell somebody the news, the good news that I had heard, farming really, people that really needed to be prepared, and preparing the ground, you had a disc, you had to plow, you had to disc again, you had to rake and smooth the ground, then you planted, then you disc again, then you cultivated. There's a huge process. And I realized that sometimes it takes many times of sharing about who Jesus is before a person could understand and before a person could invite him into his life. Myself, I went to church for 18 years, every Sunday. And yet it took me almost 24 years before I was ready to invite Christ into my life. And thinking he could do this in another person's life. But the big thing, and the thing I think I'd like to challenge people with, is share. You may be the only person that this person ever talks to about Jesus. You could be the person that, like my friends, in between the main course and dessert, talk to somebody who's ready to invite Christ into their lives. They just need to hear from someone. But I had to move out of that it really wasn't about making a lot of money, farming mentality, if you would, of farming for crops, but farming really for souls.